wanted to let you guys know where he's at, okay? So, when you think about it, for the first 2 decades of your life, it's all about you. It's about your growth. It's about your safety. It's about your education. It's about your accomplishments, be it academic, athletic, or musical, or whatever it is. But life is all about you. And then sometime in your 20s, you set off on this journey we call adulthood, which those of us who've been around for a while realize it's totally overrated. But really, it's still kind of about you, you know, your job, your home that you're establishing, the stuff that you're buying, you know, all the things that make you happy. And for a while, it's satisfying, it's fun, you know, to be a young adult and be out there and have all those things happening in your life, and it's fun, exciting. Then perhaps at some point, you fall in love and get married. And then it's not all about you. It's a little bit still about you, although there are people out there in the world who don't get this, and so they, you know, but if your marriage is gonna survive and it's gonna be a good marriage, you gotta give a little, you gotta give a lot. And then the kids come along, and it ain't about you no more, okay? The kids, the marriage, the job, those things become your purpose. And for a long time, that's satisfying. Life is hectic, life is crazy when that's going on, but life is hectic, but it's still satisfying at some level, right? You still feel like you have purpose. Then all of a sudden, your beautiful children become teenagers, and you think to yourself, is this what I spent 15 years of my life doing? Seriously? You know? Or your marriage becomes stale. You know, after a time, the marriage kind of becomes stale, and you wonder, can I ever recapture that magic that we used to have? And then there's the job. Yeah, that job. The one that used to bring fulfillment, the one that used to get you up in the morning, the one where you had so much potential. But now you see people getting promotions because they're the boss's favorite. Or maybe you see your coworkers who are not competent at all being advanced while you stay in the same position because you're too valuable to replace. Does anybody know that one? Oh yeah. Yeah, you're too good at what you do, so you can't be replaced. And here's the deal. One morning you wake up and you scream to yourself, why am I even here? And that's the name of today's lesson. Why am I even here? Does anyone else feel this way? Is this me? Is this a cranky old guy on stage? No, there's a few of them. Okay, good. I'm glad. Because here's the thing, I thought I was on the right path. I thought I was doing all the things that God wanted me to do and following his lead. So why do I feel so defeated and sometimes empty inside? I was born, but what was my purpose for that? So while I was preparing for this message, I discovered something about purpose. There are like 500 different sermons, seminars, books, and all that out there on this. So here's the thing, it's gonna be impossible for me to bring anything new to the table on this subject. But God revealed some new truth to me. So I'm hoping that he does the same for you as well. And if he doesn't, if you sit here all, the next 20 minutes or whatever, and you leave here and you feel like, I didn't get anything out of this, the ushers and greeters will be at the door. They're gonna refund your ticket price on us. No questions asked, Anyway, hopefully you'll get something out of this. But in my young adulthood, I thought my purpose was to go to work and to provide for my family, to be a good husband, to be a good dad. And I did all those things. And here's the thing, it satisfied. I mean, it was a good purpose for me. And it satisfied. Then when I was 22, I accepted Jesus into my heart. And I fell in love with him. And I was hungry for his word. And I loved reading about him. And my relationship with him grew. And I gained wisdom. And I prospered. And it was good. It was probably some of the best times of my life, really, when I look back on it in my early 20s. But over time, I started doing the Christian things, all the things that I was supposed to do. I led small groups, my wife and I did. We taught the youth. You know, anytime there was a need, we filled in. It didn't matter. It wasn't just Enjoy Church. It was a large church that we belonged to and a small church before that. But I did all the Christian things. I even was on the worship team, for crying out loud. Not sure how that happened. But over time, I started to lose connection with my purpose. And one of the great tragedies of life is when life is lived without purpose. But even what is purpose? How do I have purpose if I don't really even know what it means? So according to the Oxford Language Dictionary, the word purpose means this: the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So for a long time, I confused my calling with my purpose. So I thought I was called to do this. I was called to do that. So I thought that was my purpose, but I confused it. So we're going to define that a little bit. Your calling is using your God-given talents and abilities to further the kingdom of God and to bring him glory. Your purpose is different. And it's almost the same for every Christian. Actually, it is the same for every Christian. Catch this. It's to love your God with all your heart and all your soul and bring him glory through that love. Did you catch that distinction? Calling, gifts, talents, doing. Purpose, love God. So let's see what Jesus had to say about this. So we're going to go to Matthew 22, 34 through 38. This is Jesus. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees, we don't like those people, got together, and one of them, an expert in the law, of course, tested him with this question: Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And this is the first and greatest commandment. Our first order of business for all believers is to love God. Love God. But then Jesus goes on further and he says this: and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Our purpose is about relationships. Now here's the deal. We read the 10 Commandments starting when we're little, whether we're, in a Bible study or anything. We learn the 10 Commandments when we're young. But what do we focus in on? Oh, it's a whole bunch of thou shalt nots. The 10 Commandments is about the only place where you even find the King's English anymore. Thou shalt not do this. Thou shalt not do that. Thou shalt not do this. But if you really look at the 10 Commandments, O'Fallon, it's about relationship. It's about loving God and then treating your fellow man in a way that is reflective of love. It's all about relationships, and it's all about love because God is love. So now, you may think to yourself, okay, I get that, but what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Well, I'll give you a little lesson based on some hard truths that I've learned in my 61 years. If you're looking for your purpose, you're looking in the wrong place. See, whenever I was searching for my purpose, I did things that brought temporary satisfaction. The job, the titles, the stuff, all those things. Why? Because my focus was on me. And we've all seen this in society. People who have everything they could possibly not need, want. Billionaires, famous actors, famous actresses, whatever they are, titans of capitalism. Michael Jackson. Sad. Michael Jackson lived a sad life, if you think about it. He had everything in the world, and he was never satisfied. Even more dangerous, he didn't have anybody tell him no. He didn't have anybody tell him, I don't think you should do that, because he became his own God. But we see it closer to home as well. We all have those friends, and maybe this is going to hit real close to home. It kind of hit close to home with me. But we all have those friends who are social media freaks, right? They are posting everything about how magnificent their life is, how awesome they are. They've never even had a pimple, and they're gonna show you how that happens, right? And here's the thing. I'm all for celebrating people. I'm all for celebrating success, and I love to see what's happening on Facebook with friends and family and all that kind of thing. And I certainly have done my fair share of posting, particularly on vacations, where I really like sunsets. But here's the thing. Some people become obsessed with the likes, and it really becomes their whole purpose. And that's kind of sad. It's empty, because you're always chasing after something that you're not going to catch. So I told you earlier that I'd learned something. God had taught me something in this realm that I had missed for many, many, many years. And here's what it is. You don't find your purpose. You find God's purpose for your life. See, I was looking for my purpose, and I was missing God's. So we're gonna spend a couple of minutes, we're gonna look at a couple of scriptures about a guy from the Bible named David. Has anyone heard of David? Yeah, okay, well, if you're here for the first time and you haven't heard of David, we're gonna kind of go over it. He was kind of a big deal in the Bible. And here's the thing. You may say to yourself, well, David had a purpose, obviously. But we're gonna read about this. So in Acts 13:36, it says, now when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was buried with his ancestors, and his body decayed. David served God's purpose. Had David served David's purpose, you would have never heard of him. You never would have. We kind of saw that with Bathsheba, okay? I'm not just saying. And you may think to yourself, yeah, he was destined for greatness serving God's purpose, and maybe so. But let's read on. 1 Samuel 16:10 through 12, Jesse had 7 sons pass before Samuel. Samuel is a prophet. But Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all your sons? And Jesse said, yeah, they're still the youngest. He's tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him, for we will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him, and he had him brought in, and he was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. But here's what you have to know about that time and that place. David was the youngest. That made him the least. His father didn't even think to bring him before Samuel, okay? He didn't even think, it was like, he's just a sheep herder dude. He's my youngest kid. He's just this little pipsqueak. I'm not even going to call him here because surely God's going to anoint one of my more prominent sons. The firstborn would be the natural choice in that society, but no. David was the least. And here's the thing. If you go on and you read in Samuel when David killed Goliath, okay, that's a popular story that we hear all the way back in Bible school. But if you read on in 17, you realize this. On the day he slayed Goliath, David was nothing more than a Hebrew version of Uber Eats. He went to the front to take bread and grain to his brothers and cheese to the commanders, which makes me think that Jesse was kind of sucking up. But anyway, and when Saul decided to go ahead and use him, David was so small he couldn't wear the armor that Saul had given him. But listen to what David said. 1 Samuel 17:34 through 37. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Come on now. Yeah, David deserves a little bit of, because that's some serious word, right? That brings us to our second point. Find your purpose in the small things. Yeah, David was destined to be king. There was no doubt about it. David was destined to be king, but he first found his purpose tending the sheep. And in tending the sheep, he learned the skills and developed the trust in God that would deliver him. So it's in the small things that you're molded. It's in the small things that you're tested. And it's in the small things where trusting God is developed. And if you think small, unseen things don't matter, you're wrong. Show of hands. Who in here ever played any sports, whether they were a kid, little league football, baseball, softball, junior high, high school, maybe, hey, if you went on to college, that's awesome. You're quite rare. So let's see those hands. Hold them up. Oh, good number of you. So when you play a sport, you get equipment, both to play the game and to protect yourself. For baseball and softball, you get a bat, you get a glove, you get a ball, you get a helmet. In football, you get a helmet, shoulder pads, leg pads. Soccer, you get shin pads. Volleyball players get knee pads. Hockey players get all the pads because hockey hurts at every level. If you've ever played hockey, it's like the most painful sport there is out there. Maybe, I don't know, but it's the most painful one I ever did. But at some point, you got one of these. Do you know what this is? I know the lady in the fourth row fainted. I'm sorry. Do you know what this is? Does it have a purpose? Oh, yes, it does. I kind of cracked up that this one had a cross on it. I think I was like, I don't know if it's for church league softball or if someone just thought, you know what? There are certain times when you just need all the protection you can get. But here's the thing. This can't be seen as part of the uniform, can it? You can't see when someone's wearing one of these, unless you look, and that's weird. Don't do that. This is not a glorious piece of equipment, okay? Its purpose is unseen. It's not as glamorous as the cool helmet in football that has the face mask and the logo and all the stickers about how awesome you are. But does that make this less important? Depends on where you get hit. You know? So don't think that your purpose is small and unseen and not important. Romans 12:4-5 says this, "For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others." So if you think your God-given purpose isn't important because it isn't seen, like this piece of equipment, if you don't use your purpose and you don't follow God's plan for you, when the church takes a hit, let me tell you, the whole body suffers. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. I was unsure about using this prop, but okay. So those of you who are athletes and raised your hands earlier, how many had younger siblings? Had never seen one of these before? It's like, what's this, Bobby? Well, Timmy, it's an oxygen mask. Am I doing it right? Absolutely. Why don't you go show mom that? She'll be. So here's the deal. I have a point. When you misuse your purpose, things get awkward. So there you go. Let's get back on track. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Why does this seem so hard? Why do so many of us stumble through life going from one thing to another, trying to find fulfillment in things that don't really matter? Why can't I find a purpose in my life? So here's the thing. We're going to go to Genesis here. Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother Abel. And the soil cried out to God. And God knew what had happened. And after Cain killed his brother Abel in Genesis 4, his sin separated him from the presence of God. Here's what Cain said, Genesis 4:13 through 14. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Why can't I find a purpose in my life? Because I'm seeking direction without connection. I've spent a lot of time doing that. And here's the thing, even if you're born again and Jesus has covered your sins, we separate ourselves out. Our guilt and shame, we withdraw from God. He doesn't withdraw from us, but we withdraw from God, and then we still try to find direction when really what we need is connection. Connection. But here's the thing. God reaches out. He calls us by name. Being in his presence is what we're originally designed for. So I'm gonna, this is kind of a long quote. I'm gonna quote Jordan Peterson. It's a guy that I've used sometimes before. I don't know if it was AI generated or what, but I'm gonna quote it verbatim because I thought it was awesome. When God wanted to create fish, he spoke to the sea. When God wanted to create trees, he spoke to the earth. But when God wanted to create man, he turned to himself. Then God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. If you take a fish out of water, it will die. If you remove a tree out of soil, it will also die. Likewise, when man is disconnected from God, he dies. God is our natural environment. We were created to live in his presence. We have to be connected to him because it is only in him that life exists. Let us stay connected to God. Let us remember that water without fish is still water, but fish without water is nothing. The soil without a tree is still soil, but the tree without soil is nothing. And God without man is still God, but man without God is nothing. Our purpose in life is to have a personal relationship with God. That's your purpose, to love God, to be in relationship with him, to be connected to him. And here's the deal, and I think we miss this sometimes. You and I have been personally invited into a relationship with the creator of all that is seen and unseen. He wants to love you. He wants to know you. He wants to show you his favor. And when you recognize the enormity of that invitation to be in relationship with God, an invitation that he paid for with the blood of his son, Jesus Christ, everything else pales in comparison. And it becomes your why. It becomes why you serve, why you pray, not out of obligation, out of love. Why you give, and why you seek him out more. These are the truths he showed me through this message. And when you look at who Jesus is, and Jesus was, and what he claimed to do, to atone for my sin, to make a way for me to be in right standing with God, that I can be a new being washed clean in his blood, that I can have peace, fulfillment, and a purpose through him. If those things are true, and Jesus is who he said he is, and the evidence is overwhelming, archaeological evidence, eyewitness accounts, hundreds of years of prophecy, it's true. So if that's true, there can be no gray area with Jesus. You have to choose a side. You have to pick a side. Jesus is either the Son of God who came to earth to die for the sins of the world, or he isn't. There is no middle ground. You have to pick a side. So I'm gonna finish with this. Our lives are hectic. Time moves faster than you think. If any of you have a couple years under your belt, you realize that. And no one is promised tomorrow. So Tony Evans, when I was doing my research on purpose, Tony Evans had a quote in one of his sermons that really stuck with me. He said this, he said, life is like a coin. You can spend it any way you want, but you can only spend it once. Invest it, don't just spend it. Pastor Matt?